We are 2 weeks through the mid-season buys. Another 3 trades left to make this week in AFL Fantasy. 4 teams have the week off, but there are 10 trade targets I have got for you. Whether you're needing to get yourself a premium, need to make some money, or you want to get a little creative, here at the Coaches Panel, my top 10 trade targets every single week. Hopefully, here to help you with the moves you need to make this week. Kicking it off, my number 1 trade target is an upgrade for you. It's Zak Butters. In at 936k, he is down a massive 153,000 on his season starting price. He was exceptional last week against the Gold Coast Suns, dishing up a ton, slowed a little bit as the game went on, which was nice. It just kept him nice and affordable for us this week. Such a good player, really a 105 to 110 premium midfielder, if we're honest. To get him at a discounted rate, there's arguably still a little bit of money left to go with that 120 break even, but I love what we're about to get from him. He's got Melbourne this week, which is the 3rd easiest matchup for inside mids over the last 5 rounds. Then throw that up with Sydney, who's more than favourable. Carlton, a little bit more difficult. But still, he's off the bye. He's at almost his lowest price point. He's arguably at that, if you believe that he can hit that 120. I like this one. He's a 105 plus mid at a cheap price point off the bye. What's there to not like? And there are so many pathways of how to get there. You can get off a Ned Long's like 60, 70k, and you're there into a Zak Butters. If I told you at the start of the season, you'd be able to get from Long to Butters for less than 100,000, you would have told me I was delusional. So the fact that we can do that is such a simply favorable move. Again, guys like a Bice, people can jump off and upgrade using some DPP. It's the number 1 move for me. If I was making any move this week, especially as an upgrade, jumping into Zak Butters for me is the number 1. How about we find you some cash with my number 2 option? Sound good? Let's do that for you. Nicholas Madden is my number 2 trade target. Let me talk to you about it for why, because I don't think there are too many people that feel like they're screaming for an R3, but with the beauty of the utility position, I know a lot of coaches have a Harry Boyd, an Arch Reed, might be a way to free up 100k or so. But regardless, I think at your utility spot, this is the guy under 300,000 that I believe is going to make the next money over the next fortnight. Now, number 1 reason is he's got unbelievable job security, right? He's a ruckman in a team that have their number 1 guy injured for the next 2 weeks leading up to the bye. It's something we don't have really a lot of at this point in time, is confidence that when we're going under 350, let alone under 300,000, that these 2 things are going to happen. Number 1, that they're going to get a consistent run of 2 or 3 games in a row, and barring an injury, they're not going to get red or green vested. This isn't the case with Nicholas Madden. They've shown their hand here, the Giants. Remember in round 1 when Briggs was missing, they put in Lockie Keefe. They didn't do that here. They've seen enough at the lower levels that he belongs for at least an opportunity at the top end. And he more than delivered last week. Now, yeah, let's put his 80 in context. It was against the easiest ruck matchup in the game. So let's do that. But regardless, a negative 12 break even if he goes 60s over the next fortnight, which isn't easy, it's the Lions and the Suns, especially that Gold Coast one doesn't look great. But let's just say he goes 60. At the lower end, let's just say he goes 60 over the next 2 weeks. He's going to make another $100,000+. To be able to squeeze 100k on field is exceptional. Let alone there's a week removed from Max Gawn missing. To be able to throw him into that R2 spot to potentially kick off a poor score, it's exceptional. Just ask coaches that were dealing with 30s this week or single-digit scores last week. To be able to find a way to force them out of your best 18 is outstanding. Rowan Marshall owners that have him currently at R3 are loving this, and Gawn owners have the same opportunity. You can tap out of that top-priced rook, use some DPP, and even if you don't want to move your Harry Boyd type out of R3, you're still going to sit him there. I've got him over the next fortnight. Of any player that's currently priced under 300,000, I'm the most confident in him making 100K over the next fortnight. Others might score more than him, but his job security, his role security are the most stable over the next fortnight. Pretty happy to put Nicholas Madden in at my number 2 spot. Ready for number 3? Let's go all the way to the top. Nasiah Wanganeen-Milera. Over $1 million, averaging 106, the break even of 99. So you're going to be paying fair value now for him. A quarter of the competition own him. And in his last 6 weeks, 5 of those scores have been triple digits, including that amazing Renaissance game that happened just before the bye where I thought at halftime, finally, I'm about to get him cheap. No, that's just not the case. He's playing a mix and match of some occasional inside mid role and a little bit more than off the halfback and distribution. Let's hope he plays that role for us this week, and there's a good reason for it. Simply put, the Western Bulldogs are giving up the 3rd most points to kind of that wing halfback distribution role over the last 5 weeks, in contrast to 3rd hardest for inside mids. So if he sits off the back, has that playmaking creative role, that's favourable for us. Away we go. If he's in at midfield and in at stoppage, with McRae coming back, I think that's less likely than it would have been had McRae and now Filippo not been playing. Regardless, this is a kind of player that can drop a 120 on almost anybody. He can score 80.5 with comfort and ease. High footy smarts, and honestly, the type of player that is, you get to that final 6 to 8 weeks of the year, regardless of whether you're going for rankings or leagues, this is not somebody you want to get caught up against. He can really dish up some big scores. He's my number 3 trade target this week. In at number 4, let's start to open up some creative pathways for you. Sam Dockerty. Carlton have an unbelievably good run over the next 3 weeks. It's the Eagles, it's North, and it's Port. They've just come off an Essendon game. And importantly, not only is the fixture great, but his role is strong. He's back in that halfback distribution role. All matchups that he's about to play in the next 3 weeks are super favourable for these positions from a DVP perspective, using the DFS Australia data. Designated kickers, general defenders, and sort of that wing halfback playmaker role. That's really, really favourable. Again, we talk about Ned Long as an option to jump off this week. He's done his job. There's a bit of money left to be made, sure. You can go up, and for about 50K, you can get yourself into a Zak Butters, or no. If you want to drop it down about 50K and make a bit of cash, you can get into Dockerty. Now, the only little flag I'll wait for it here is he had a high, heavy mark percentage that got him this boosted score last week. Again, over 800K. Again, the break-even's good. He should get close to $900,000 and, sort of $90,000 made over the next month, given this fixture. But that Bombers game, and if you've watched the Bombers games over this year, they're not strong at forward half pressure. They're happy to just let teams kick it around the arcs and change the angles in the back line, which is favourable for him. Again, both the Eagles, North especially, and to a lesser degree, but also Port Adelaide will allow that. I think it's still a favourable move. The question you've got to ask is, do you want to just go up a little bit of cash off a long type and get there? Or are you moving off a Lindsay or something like that, and this is as good as you can get? Because this next 3 weeks could be pretty favourable. The Carlton run is unbelievable. It is so good. I think there could be some realms of where and why you head into that spot. And then rounding out my top 5 has been one of the best premium mids of the year to date. He's fresh off the bye, Andrew Brayshaw. A matchup against North Melbourne this week. They are number 2 in the last 5 weeks for easiest inside midfield matchups. They give up a heap of points, not just at stoppage, but also in the transition mode. And if Brayshaw can open and continue to expand that's really strong. Because the week after that, they've got Essendon. I just talked about how much freedom and space they give opposition midfielders and defenders. Man, Brayshaw could really feast over the next couple of weeks. The average doesn't look as amazing. I understand that. But this is the kind of guy that he's yet to really pop his monster ceiling this week, and could just be the week, because we haven't quite got there this year. You're paying fair value, but again, The ownership doesn't look amazing. Sort of 1 in 5 coaches have him. But if you look towards that sort of top 1,000, top 2,000 coach, he's very heavily populated in that area. And if you are trying to chase and trying to negate, you've got to make a decision somewhere. And to me, Brayshaw is certainly somebody that's going to continue to put up some big scores over the next couple of weeks. So that's my top 5. I've got Butters at 1, Madden at 2, Wanganeen-Milera at 3, in at 4 it's Dockerty, and then at 5 it is Brayshaw. You want to keep going? All right, let's do that for you. Marcus Bontempelli's my number 6 trade target. That's 2 weeks in a row I've had him in the top 10. If you remember back to what we said last week, it was a good fixture of 4 or 5 weeks, but last week wasn't the forced week. It didn't have to be last week. That break even didn't really mandate it. And a 91, given he wasn't great and got pretty well held through big chunks of the game, it was all right. You could probably arguably say you could wait another week with that break even of 129. It's kind of on the upper edges of what he could do. And at 1.039 million, yeah, okay. Every dollar counts, especially if 100k cheaper, getting into Zak Butters. Have I made it clear he's my number 1 trade target of the week yet? Just wanted to make sure that you understood that. But when I look at this fixture over the next month, 2 of his next 4 games come against 2 of the top 4 teams for inside mids to score against by average. St Kilda, Tigers, Swans and North over the next month. They could go 4-0 from a victory perspective and really open things up. I know they'll try to negate him with various opponents, but I genuinely don't see one player that could stop him in the same way that others have at least had a chance to impact his influence on the game. Bont, for me, is my number 6 trade target. Number 7's getting some respect on his name, even though the matchup's not amazing. Just the fact is he's been that good and you're not paying for him at his cheapest price anymore, although you could argue there's still a little bit of dollar value to go up. Rather, you're just trading into someone you think is a top liner for the rest of the year. In at number 7, I've got Jack Sinclair. He's over $1 million now. The break even of 80 does indicate there might be a little bit more of upside to go. Got an interesting recent history, both against his opponent, the Bulldogs, but also what he's doing at the moment, because he's gone 123 in his last 3. So certainly knocking it out of the park, but you do need to take the opposition into consideration. But you do have to go back to 2023 for the last time he turned up against the Bulldogs. Not a great matchup for inside mids. We've talked about this with Nasiah already. If he's in that spot, I'm a little nervous. I'd still rather Naz, who I think might not have the same ceiling that Sinclair does, but probably has a little bit more resilience to his scoring. He's an average of 103. He's basically been that the last couple of years. You're paying for a top liner. It's not a huge value play, but it's not a huge fixture play. It's just I want to get the best top 6 defenders that I possibly could. And he sits in the spot. So to me, happy to put a Jack Sinclair in at number 7. In at number 8, this is probably not financially wise, but we've got to put some respect on his name too. Matthew Kennedy is my number 8 trade target. He's had 7 tons in a row, and you're paying more than fair value for him. He's the 4th most expensive player in the game at the moment. He had a massive market share of team scoring at 9%, which is absolutely massive. It was his biggest of the year. He's got that same good run that Bontempelli does, and certainly is not the damaging midfielder that you try to stop when you've got the likes of Ed Richards and Bontempelli in the side. So he's certainly got a little bit more freedom and scope, and scores in different ways to those two. When you look at these AFL Fantasy score build, it's a much more rounded dynamic where it's not dependent on one key column to get there. He kicks goals, he tackles, he marks, he handballs, he kicks. He does it all. He's a great fantasy prospect. The challenge is that the 4th most expensive player in the game, we're all still trying to build some value into our team. And in 6 weeks' time, when money on field is probably the optimum spot and team value on field is more critical than team value in total abundance, he might be a bit more of a prospect to go and get in 6 weeks' time. But if you're in the position to want to keep creating separation, either in that top sort of 100 to top few thousand, you're a genuine chance of winning AFL Fantasy overall. This is probably the one guy for many teams in that situation that have just not prioritized Matt Kennedy. You're not getting value out of this trade, but what you are is spending a lot of your salary cap, but you're getting the one guy that continually is putting things away from you. Could you spend a couple $100K less and go down to a Caleb Daniel type Of course you could. Absolutely you could. But this is the guy at the top end that's hurting some teams. And if you're, again, just trying to create that defensive mode, this is an option. Probably not my number one choice. Clearly, I've got him at number 8, but he's been so good this year. He not only deserves some respect, but even at this inflated price point, in contrast to everyone else in AFL Fantasy, I still think you've got to look at Matt Kennedy. Want to get creative? I got you. How about a player that has gone 96 in the last month and has had a significant role change? He's moved from his native defense into some midfield time. Like there was a game over the last month, he spent up to 82% at centre bounce and hasn't dropped below 36 in the last month. Want to know who I'm talking about? My number 9 trade target, Miles Bergman. Has DPP and he's under 800,000 and gives you some nice avenues of where and how to get there. For example, if you still own Matt Roberts, maybe you missed the news of him being ill, maybe you decided to hold him through the match last week against Richmond, whatever or however it is. You make 100K from going from Roberts to a Bergman, and he's got a break even of 50. So if this trend over the last month continues, where he's averaging a 96, he's going to get towards 850 plus over this next couple of weeks with relative ease. So that's positive. I'll talk about his role in a second. So that's really positive. Or maybe you're a Riley Bice owner and you're trying to do these incremental improvements to your team. It's under 200K to go from Bice to Bergman. I know that sounds like a lot of money, but you're getting into a guy that on the last 4 weeks has pushed that 100 average. That's really favourable. And one of the core reasons he's moved into the midfield initially was to play a targeted tag role on Jordan Dawson, but then Jason Horne-Francis goes out injured and things start to evolve a little bit and starts to add a new dimension to this Port Adelaide side. They've looked better when they've made these bold moves with Rosita halfback and now Bergman into the midfield. They just add a little bit of a new dynamic here. And there's a reason you could argue that he plays a tagging role over the next couple of weeks. They've got Melbourne. So, okay, well, he could run with a Petrarca through the midfield and then go forward with him. That makes a bit of sense. They've then got Sydney the subsequent week. You could build a case he does the same on a Chad Warner type, potentially. And then the following week after that, it's Carlton and a Patrick Cripps. These are all players that, from a stature perspective, from a power, from a speed, from an agility, Bergman can either go with or outperform them, at least in multiple of those arenas. And at under 800K, off the bye last week, dished up a ton last week. Yeah, this might just be the perfect move where you feel like you can have your cake and eat it too a little bit. I'm pretty happy to put that in there. And then my last one, just chips in, all in. Like maybe you're genuinely needing to create some separation. You're genuinely looking to do something a little bit different and you're shopping at a low end price range. Let me give you one. My number 10 trade target is Charlie Curnow. He's gone 8 straight weeks of 70 plus. I know that doesn't sound amazing, but it should give you some confidence that even on his worst day, he's going to be a 70 guy. He's got a break even of 80, so just hold that in mind. But the reason you're going is you're jumping into him because the next 3 weeks are awesome. He's got the Eagles this week. They're the number 2 easiest team to score against for general forwards and the number 1 easiest to score against for key position forwards. The week after that, it's North Melbourne. They're the number 1 ranked easiest team over the last 5 to score against for general forwards and the number 3 for key position forwards. And they've just lost Charlie Comben. And then the week after that, it's Port Adelaide. They're the number 4 easiest team in the last 5 weeks to score against for key position forwards. So the next 3 weeks are as good and as gravy as a forward of Charlie's stature. He's the type of player that, can kick 5, 6, 7 goals against every single one of these opponents, knock out a nice 105 to 120 territory average over a 3-week period. That's the upside. What's the downside? It's why I said right at the start, he's 2 months in a row of giving you 70s against some really high caliber defenders. And no shade on the Eagles, North or Port, but they are not high caliber key position defenders in any one of these teams right now. There's some good players and there's some good defenders, but their defensive units are nothing in contrast to the other teams in the top 6 to 8 of the league. And so the upside here is a 105 plus run for 3 weeks. And he makes a really easy move to a bottomed out Jason Horne-Francis type. You get the look and see if, no, I want to go somewhere else. Because if he does that sort of 105, 120, he's going to get up towards that 800, 830. Gosh, if things go well, and it needs to go really well, upwards of 850,000 is the very peak of how good this could go. Man, to be able to get that in 3 weeks, jump off the bye, he's got no concerns. He's got the best run a forward of his ilk could have. You just could go anywhere you like. You can now see, okay, Horne-Francis is at his cheapest. What does McRae do coming back off his injury? Do I want to jump in to a Matt Kennedy and it not have to cost me 400,000? Can I do it for only just the 200,000? Whoever and however you get there, it is genuinely a risk play for sure. But there's low risk point at the bottom end and there's a high reward. Now, not every team will have either the appetite to do it, but those that are just given that top 1,000 or that top 100 one big crack and trying to move hard and fast while others are paying $1 million for a 105 guy in Kennedy, could you get 3 weeks of it at 300,000 less? That might just be enough to steer your attention to put that other 300,000 on top of somebody else. Hello, Bice, all of a sudden go and get yourself in a Nasiah Wanganeen-Milera. Done. You can go and take a Lindsay and get up to a Butters. Done. Maybe the sum of the total parts gets you there rather than just the one play. I do like Charlie Curnow in at my number 10 spot. And those are my top 10 trade targets. There were some others that were unlucky to miss, but for me, those are the top 10. Do you agree or disagree with the list? You can comment below and let me know what the trades you are making this week. Remembering, you've got another 3 trades to make in AFL Fantasy. Of course, if I've named any one of the players you're trading into, the deal you and I have, you've got to like this video. If I've named one of your trade targets that you are trading into, you've got to like this video. You know, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure you do so. There are videos dropping every single day that we do not have AFL on during the season proper. So make sure you subscribe and check it out. Hey, our strategy session lands on Tuesday night. Depending on when you're watching this, it might already be there. Make sure you check it out. And Wednesday, our Supercoach version of the trade targets lands as well. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for liking. Thanks for commenting. Thank you for supporting the Coaches Panel. We'll be back with you again real soon, helping you with the decisions you need to make this week and beyond with your fantasy footy sides.